Why do you podcast? That's one of the questions I ask all my guests in this podcast series. In over 100 episodes, I've gotten more than 100 different answers, and I'm still curious for more. I'm Annelies, a strategic podcast manager in Belgium, and I confess, a podcast junkie. Please join me in listening to this new episode and discovering yet another podcast why. Along the way, you will also get lots of tips and inspiration to apply to your own podcast or to get you started. Enjoy! Hello, Meli. Welcome to Why Do You Podcast?
Thank you, Anne. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's fun having. I think this is the English episode number 5, but in total it will be episode 105. So yeah, cool, huh?
Wonderful. I think it's great you're doing this, and I applaud your doing it in English. Expands the audience and lets the rest of us in.
It does, and also I got the idea because I know I listen to a lot of English podcasts and American podcasts and even Australian ones. And I know there's a lot of people in Belgium that listen to English spoken podcasts. So yeah, why not give you guys an audience here? Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Why not?
Yeah, and we haven't actually met yet, but we are in the same club. Can I say the Podcast Marketing Academy with Jeremy? Yeah. So
yes,
yeah,
yes. That is such a wonderful group.
It is. Yeah, I'm not as active as I would like to be, but yeah, it is. It's a really nice community. Yeah. So let's talk about your podcast. What is the title and what is it about? What do you talk about?
The podcast is called Living Our Beliefs. It is part of my larger research, which is called the Talking with God Project. And so the project looks at how Jews, Christians, and Muslims believe in God, what their faith, what their prayer practice is, and how they live their faith. And the Living Our Beliefs podcast talks with the same sort of people, but focuses more narrowly on the lived expression. So what do people do in their daily life? How does their faith support them? Do they turn to it? Does it maybe not support them? And on like that.
Yeah. Okay. So you always have guests on the show, or do you also do solo episodes? Yeah.
No, it's always a guest. It's all but one episode has been a single guest. One time I had a couple, but yeah, we'll see. It may change in the future, but that's the way it's been now for over 2 years.
Yeah. So basically, you invite people to come on the show and talk about how they experience their religion or their beliefs. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yes. So I have 2 kinds of episodes. Most episodes are what I call regular episodes, and they are speaking with people about their personal faith path. Bonus episodes are talking with people about some topic like chaplaincy or religion in the public square, something like that, rather than, it's a person, right? I'm still talking with a person, and I always start out by asking them, a little about themselves, but really the balance is more on an issue rather than their own personal experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's not only the Catholic faith, but also all different religions then.
Well, what we call the Abrahamic faiths, which are 3. So it's Judaism, Christianity, which includes Catholicism, and Islam.
Okay. Oh yeah, really interesting. And
these are natural bedfellows, as it were, because we have scripture and prophets in common.
Yeah, they are somehow connected. Yeah. So, but in speaking with all these people, do you also notice the differences between them?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I began all this craziness, I started the research
Yeah.
10 years ago now. This is my 10th anniversary of the project. And the podcast I started a little over 2 years ago. But all of it is about talking with people who I probably wouldn't otherwise meet. And for me, that is just a joy.
Yeah.
You know, it's so interesting. There's so much to learn. And, you know, as a practicing Jew, I know from my own experience that there are lots and lots of ways to live a religion.
Yeah.
Or no religion, right?
Yeah.
I want to make this clear that I am not at all proselytizing, which is a very Christian thing to do. So
Yeah,
I, as
it
a
is,
Jew,
yeah.
absolutely wouldn't do that anyway.
Yeah.
But I am not even advocating that anyone be religious or religious in any particular way or at any particular degree. That's not at all my agenda. It's really about learning and appreciating the great variety of faiths and practices and how religion serves people or maybe doesn't. And, you know, what are the holidays? What about food? I mean, right now, we Jews are celebrating Passover, which honors and tells the story of our slavery in Egypt and release from slavery and really starting our journey as a people. I mean, it's such an open kind of holiday theme. So, you know, all of these kinds of things, you know, are just really interesting and expand our appreciation of people who are walking other paths.
Yeah. I'm happy to hear that you are so open about it. Yeah. But also, yeah, I think it's really interesting because I'm not religious. I was raised Catholic like a lot of people in Belgium, but yeah, I don't practice. I haven't for a long time. But yeah, of course, everyone is free to their own whatever. Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's we can also learn a lot from all these other cultures and different belief systems and stuff. So yeah, I think it's really, really cool what you're doing there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And just to build a little on what you just said, Anne, I see this discussion across religious differences as a proxy for talking across all kinds of differences. I mean, there are lots of ways that we are different from the people around us. There's language and culture and gender and sexual identity and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And these can be really challenging. I mean, you live in a very international environment. I lived in Berlin, Germany for almost a decade. That was also a very international environment, frankly, more so than where I live now in Boston. But wherever you're living, encountering difference, it might be a political perspective right now, right? The U.S., this is a very big year in politics, very important. And tempers are high. And of course, there's the war in Ukraine. That's a hot topic. There's the war between Israel and the Palestinians. That's a hot topic. So it can be very hot, and there can be strife, and we can stop listening. But that really sends us into trouble. Whether it's about racism or anti-Semitism or ageism or homophobia, any of these differences can be really problematic. And when we stop listening, it just gets worse. So, one of the things that really drives me in both my research and in the podcast is modeling, but also practicing myself. What is it like to talk with someone who has quite a different practice, attitude, value system? It it's it's interesting. I mean, I'm someone who's drawn to difference, obviously, right? I wouldn't do this work if I wanted to just stay hermetically sealed in the Jewish community, right? I
Yeah.
wouldn't do that. But I am curious about difference. It what drove me to go live in Europe and all the other travel I've done. But still, it can be challenging.
Yeah.
And, so it's good practice, and hopefully I provide a model that it is possible to have a civil and engaged and relaxed and open conversation with somebody who's different from you, whether not so different or very different, and learn something and expand and leave. You're okay at the end.
Yeah. And I think what you were saying, we should keep listening to each other, but also I think if we keep the conversation going and listen to each other, we might also find out that we have more similarities than differences sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on the fence about that. I hear people tell me that, oh, this shows that we have more similarities than differences. I think we do have a lot of similarities, but my hesitation around that, Anne, is that sometimes that statement ends up being a bit what we would say in English, Pollyanna-ish. It's like rose-tinted glasses. It's like, oh, we can all just get along, and it's all,
Yeah.
But
Of course, it's
if
not
you're
that easy.
honest and look at the world, that is so patently not true. It's like people are at each other's throats over some things that are like, really,
Yeah.
like so. I'm of mixed minds, but I think in a lot of ways I agree with you that there are so many similarities, and let's build on the similarities.
Mhm.
Let's start with what we have in common, and then move to where the stress points are, or where the disconnection is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful mission and purpose also that you have for your podcast. Yeah, because you started from research, and then yeah, why did you decide to add the podcast?
Well, I'd loved the research. I mean, I will certainly do more research interviews, but I found after 60 qualitative, in-depth interviews that I wanted to make that conversation more public, more accessible, more visible. Each way has its pros and cons. One of the benefits of the research is that in talking about something quite personal, right? People's personal faith path and how they see God, these are really personal things. They are not often discussed in an open and really curious way. So in the research, everyone is anonymized, in terms of the
Yeah.
writing and the speaking I do about the research. And that lets that lets the participant be more honest, because they know they have kind of a screen, right?
Mhm.
But that also creates a distance with the audience, right? Whereas in the podcast, you hear the voice. I always use a photograph of the person as the cover art. So you get a sense of there's a real person. I'm really hearing directly from someone, and they are willing to talk in a public forum about something that's quite personal and intimate. I don't mean that salaciously, but
No,
it is
yeah.
very personal.
No, it is, and a podcast is something very intimate. Also, yeah, between you and your guest, maybe, but also between you and your listener. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, in both of those directions.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm amazed. Yeah. I don't think we have not as far as I know, we don't have any podcasts on this topic, or at least not the way you do it in Belgium. So I think this is fascinating. Yeah, I'm gonna
Great.
have to
So
listen to some
yes,
episodes now. Yeah,
please. And I always really welcome feedback, commentary. This was really interesting. I learned that shocked me. That
Yeah.
was really strange. Whatever it is, or that just bored me to tears.
yeah,
Whatever it is, I'm always
Yeah.
really interested to hear what
Okay.
people, what the listener
Yeah.
and also to my writings, what the readers think.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always good to get feedback and to get extra questions that you can work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So you've been podcasting for 2 years now. So how many
Little over 2.
episodes?
Yep.
Yeah. How many episodes have you made?
Well, episode number 66 went live this morning.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's well done in 2 years. Yeah.
I'm hoping to reach your milestone of 100.
yeah.
But it will be sometime in 2025.
Oh, so do you have a set frequency to post new episodes, or it's just when they are ready?
No, I do. I set in the planning for the podcast, I set a schedule, and I'm pleased to say I have absolutely stuck with that. So I release 2 regular episodes a month on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays of each month. Quite soon after beginning, I think I launched in January, and I think that by March, I then realized, oops, there are 4 months in the year that have 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I realized, oh dear, there is a really long time between the 4th week and the next 2nd week. And it felt too long. So I added the bonus episode, which is released on the 5th week. So that 4 times a year, there is never more than a week in between episodes.
Yeah.
And I've stuck with that, and that's working.
Okay. Yeah, smart. Yeah.
And then if I can add another note, on the 3rd week, on the 3rd Thursday of the month, I release my monthly blog post.
Okay. Yeah.
So every week except for the 1st Thursday of the month, something goes out.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then the first week I have as a kind of a catch-up breather,
yeah.
week.
yeah. You're allowed that also. Yeah. But then you have
Yes.
fresh content almost every week. So yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what are kind of like gifts or lessons that the podcast has given you?
Oh, so many. Mostly, as you can probably already tell, education is the foundation of my work. So I have just learned a tremendous amount about all the ways that people live their religion and how it supports them. Here are some examples. I was surprised when an evangelical woman, actually she lives in Switzerland, but she's from Asia. She talked about how she appeals to Jesus when she's confronted with too many choices in the cereal aisle.
Okay.
That was a surprise. I was like, okay. And I've been humbled by the depth of faith that some people feel. An artist I had spoke about how his AA program, which is, really has a Christian base, is helping him to stay sober, and that feeds into his artwork. It's altered his attention to his artwork. I've been heartened by how people in interfaith families accommodate those differences, whether it's around food or whether it's around the marriage ceremony and how to raise a child. I really it was wonderful to hear that accommodation was an ongoing discussion within the family, and it was working, right? There was no strife about it. I also have really welcomed the chance to talk about racism, which is unfortunately a huge issue here in the U.S. With a Black American woman, and that's great. That's great. So just so much to learn, and I've appreciated getting to practice, as I've already mentioned, to model, how can I, as a host, but also as a practicing Jew, talking with other people of faith, how can we have an honest conversation that really gets below the surface and still be civil and open and curious? And it can be a challenge sometimes. On a kind of a business front, and speaking podcaster to podcaster here,
Yeah.
I have learned more about marketing and the challenges of getting people's attention. Where my strengths are, what I just can't stand doing, what I'm not good at, and who can I get help to, it's why I'm in Jeremy's program, right? That's why I'm in that community, because that is so my weak link. And, in the end, though, I just really enjoyed the excuse to talk to people I wouldn't otherwise meet.
Yeah.
And courtesy of this technology to talk with people anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
From the company of, from the comfort of my own home.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel the older I get, the more I start to sound maybe like my grandmother saying, "Oh, in the old times, everything was better." But this is so amazing that we can have this conversation. I'm in Belgium, you're in Boston. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great when it works, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah.
I love technology just when it works.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think that sometimes I say that's the only thing that I miss from working in a corporate environment is now that I have my own business and I work alone. What I really miss is the IT help desk.
Yes. Amen to that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Every family needs an IT expert and an attorney and somebody in medicine,
Yeah. Yeah. And a good accountant. Yeah.
And a good accountant, yes.
Yeah. But I do have those. Both my parents they are retired now, but both my parents were accountants. So I do have those.
So you got double duty on that.
Yeah,
I'm okay with the numbers part. I have an MBA, so that's not a problem for me. But yeah, the marketing, I'm so pleased that there are people like Jeremy who love all of that and understand it and can provide guidance. It is such a blessing.
Yeah, it is. It is for me too, because of course I'm a podcast manager and I love podcast marketing. It's also my expertise is also in podcast marketing, but the podcasting world in Belgium is so much different, and we have still so much to learn compared to the podcast industry in the US and Canada. So I learned so much also in the community, not only from Jeremy, but everyone in the community. So yeah. And it's great.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that the podcasting in Belgium is behind, as it were.
Oh, technology is failing us.
Yes, it is. You froze there.
You froze.
Okay. It's trying to reconnect.
No, I didn't hear what you last said about you didn't realize, I'm guessing, how different it is here, or?
Yeah, I didn't realize that the podcasting world was behind, as it were,
Yeah,
from the US and Canada.
it is. It is. In Europe, I think we are a little bit behind because,
Hmm.
podcasting only became very popular here with COVID.
Well, it also got a huge boost in the US with COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But
And audiobooks, I think also.
oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but I've had guests on from UK, from the US that have been podcasting for more than 10 years, and then I'm like, ooh, now I feel
Yeah.
I feel like a total beginner.
No, I have the same feeling. Yeah. Well, there's, it's everybody starts things when they do.
All right. I've two more questions. I want to ask you. Have you had any bloopers or blunders that you would like to share? Because we can all learn from those and maybe have a laugh. Now it's behind us.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, not really.
Okay.
I've made some scheduling and preparation mistakes. And even I'm a super well organized person, so that is a blessing. I mean, I can't imagine doing this work and being a disorganized person. I think you'd never put an episode out. But I'm kind of guessing that you mean more within the interview, or how are you when you ask that question? What are you thinking about?
Well, it can be anything, really, but what seems to happen a lot is you forget to record.
Detail. Right. Yeah. I haven't done that yet. What I have gotten frustrated and a little pushy. Well, not me pushing. Let me rephrase that. Cut that part out.
Yeah.
I have gotten frustrated with some guests for various reasons, and I've struggled with how to interact with them, and then afterwards thought, I need to work on that. But I'm not so sure that's really a blooper. I think it's just part of the learning curve, and again, this is just par for the course when we're talking with people we don't know who are different from us in some ways. There can be tensions that come out, or we can be surprised by things in the conversation, and it's human nature. When you're surprised, you sometimes have reactions that are less than wonderful. So that has happened. The other thing that I would say is there was one time when a guest asked if she could hear the recording before I released it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was caught by surprise. I hadn't even considered this option, even though I had already put out lots of episodes. No one had asked that. And she's quite, she has quite a big following. And I was thinking, oh, this is an important person. I should accommodate, why not? And I did it, but it ended up being a mistake. She said at the 11th hour, when I had spent hours editing, she said, don't release this. And then I that really messed up my schedule. I had to scramble and fit something else in and blah, 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 blah. And I just felt like I'd lost a lot of time. So I learned from that. And the next time I was asked that, I said, sorry, yeah, I can't do that. This is partly a trust thing. You can hear lots of back episodes. I edit every single episode. If you don't feel that you can trust me, then we shouldn't record. I don't want to even start this conversation. And so that, but that again, that's about a learning curve, and fortunately, it's really, I've gotten that question only twice.
Yeah. I never spontaneously offer to let them listen before, but if they ask, then I do give them the recording before it goes live. And I must say, it rarely happens that someone asks to cut something or to edit something out or to not release it. Because if it does, it does hurt a little bit, because you have put a lot of work into it, and as you say, it messes up your schedule. But I think it's also it's mutual respect, and as you say, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. If you don't trust me to have then we shouldn't have the conversation.
Yeah. So that's interesting that you
Yeah.
have had that experience, it sounds like, a few times, and you have not
Well,
released things that you
no,
have
I have
already.
no, they never asked me not to release it. So
Oh.
no, they have asked, can I listen? And then I said, yeah, no problem. But it's usually because they've never been a guest on a podcast before, and then they get a bit insecure and nervous about, my voice is gonna be out there, so it basically they just need some reassurance that, and if they can have a listen before the episode releases, then they feel like, okay, I didn't say anything stupid, so it can
Right.
go, yeah. And
Right.
they
No,
do
that's a good point. Yeah. And I have noticed over the years that I've gradually shifted to more experienced interviewees.
Yeah.
Partly for that reason, because I want, it avoids the whole challenge of somebody doesn't really know how to be a guest,
Yeah.
or the whole tech is a little too much for them, or whatever the problem is. And it also, I've found that those kinds of people, especially, I've shifted, not completely, but I've had more published authors and academics on, for a similar reason, that I have found that those kinds of people, they're very appropriate for my podcast, but also because they've published and they've been teaching at a university level, they've thought about their ideas quite a lot. So their answers are fuller and more nuanced, and it's an interesting, not that other people don't have interesting ideas, but they're thought through. So the answers are more clear and succinct, which just makes for a better podcast and makes my life in the editing and the post, and the production end of it easier.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
But these are for any of us who produce podcasts, these are natural evolutions. You find, I want to have more of those kinds of guests, or I want to have more guests or fewer guests, or longer or shorter, or, more frequent episodes, or, whatever. That's just all about development.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and as I said, because maybe the podcast industry is just starting to grow a little in Belgium, we do have more guests that don't have experience being guests. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a learning process. Yeah.
Right. But people who have been on radio, or they've done interviews with journalists for newspapers, people who have given talks at colleges, or, their local communities, those are all people who have been thinking about their ideas and know how to deliver some information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
totally makes sense. Yeah. So one last question. What do you think is the most important ingredient for a good podcast?
It's a little hard to choose, frankly,
you
Anne.
You can say more than one, but because
I think for me that
yeah.
I think for me that the top item is to be curious and to be open to ideas, and to be able to ask good, open questions, which I know I'm good at, and that's really important. You want to be interested in the topic and in the person. Otherwise,
Yeah.
don't have them on.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
the fit has to be right. So, it is. You want that liveliness. You want the listener to be interested, and so you need to be interested in the topic and who is this person and why do they think the way they think and what does that word mean and on like that. I'd say also ties into what I said a moment ago about guests is to have smart and articulate guests. This is I find really important.
Yeah.
And to be attuned to current or evergreen topics. What's happening. I don't do a current events program. Mine is really an evergreen topic, but I deal with religion. That means there are events that happen in the world. There are maybe elections or wars, or there are holidays, right? The episode I put out this morning is with a British Jewish Orthodox woman. We didn't specifically talk about Passover, but it's a Jewish theme. And during Ramadan, I had on a Muslim woman I know to talk specifically in that case about Ramadan and her experience and the holiday and all of that. So those are just kind of natural touch points. And I think whatever your topic is as the podcast host, it just makes sense to be paying attention to those things.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I think I would not be good at what you do at all because I try to avoid the news as much as I can. So I of course I am aware that there are wars going on and that the elections are coming up in the US because you hear stuff anyway, even if you're trying to avoid it. But but it only makes me really sad. So I try to avoid it. But that doesn't mean that I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Right. Well, you do have that right, and and these are choices. And to be clear, I don't run a news program.
No, but you have to you have to know what's going on in the world in order to have the conversations that you are having on your show. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mostly I'm talking with people about their very personal expressions and what happens in their daily lives. But maybe it's because I'm Jewish and anti-Semitism is just always in the air. It just always is. It's a matter of whether it's low or high. That's the difference, unfortunately. So I think, most of us are more attuned. We can't block it out completely. It's not a good idea. And of course, with things in Israel these days, it's both very painful and very upsetting.
Yes. Yeah.
And you it's kind of like driving and you pass an accident. You don't want to look and it's hard to not look.
Yeah.
It's one of those dilemmas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So yeah, it's can you pick one ingredient that would say you stands out more or no, it's in the recipe.
Well, yes, it is in the recipe and in the secret sauce, but I would say at the top of the pile is about being intellectually curious.
Yeah.
And being open, right? Curiosity and openness go together. For me and my topic, that is the leading quality. That is the leading element that I need to have. And, for me, that comes easily. That's a natural thing. I don't think I would be doing this podcast if I weren't just, I don't know, somehow genetically wired in that way.
Yeah.
But I think, and frankly, Anne, I think that's true for a lot of podcast hosts. I think if you're not interested in something, and if you have guests on, if you're not interested in the guests and curious about what they're doing or how they're doing it or what made them a great success or whatever your topic is, I think it would be a really boring podcast to listen to. And it would be a boring podcast to produce. And it's too much work to have it be boring. Good Lord.
Is, yeah. And yeah, anyway, why would you make a podcast about something that doesn't interest you? But
right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Maybe you want to torture yourself. I don't know.
Because usually it's for most of us it's not, we're not in it for the money. So yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. So no, that's a really good ingredient. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
One more thing, because I would like to make a lot more episodes and also in English. So do you have any suggestion for a next episode who I could invite?
I do.
Okay.
I actually have two.
Okay.
Now, of course, because of my territory, these are both religion things.
Okay.
So, which may or may not interest you, but the two are, there is a wonderful podcast out of Brigham Young University, which is the huge Mormon university out in Utah. And they have many podcasts, but they have one on religion called In Good Faith. I was a guest there. It's a wonderful podcast, very interfaith. They have all kinds of people far beyond the Abrahamic faiths. And the host, Stephen Cap Perry, is a wonderful guy, very experienced, easy, warm, asks good questions. So that would be good. The other one are the co-hosts of a podcast called, and this gets the prize for great title, it's called Straight White American Jesus.
Okay.
Isn't that not great? Straight White American Jesus. This is a podcast hosted by Brad Onishi and Daniel Miller. They are both academics, former evangelicals, and the podcast is really about religion and politics, mostly about the religious right, which is, a huge issue here in America. But they're really articulate. They really know their stuff. They're not outsiders, right? These are so. Yeah. I would definitely, if you're interested in having more on religion, then I would definitely check out those two podcasts and see if they float your boat.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I get asked the question as a podcast manager: do you have a niche? Do you are your clients all have a certain similar topic for their podcast? Well, in Belgium, the industry is so small that no, I don't have a niche. I guess in America there's lots of podcast managers and a lot of competition, so they can really have a niche. But I don't, and I'm interested in a lot of subjects and a lot of topics. I'm the only thing that really I don't have any thing with is like football.
It's funny. I was just about to say sports for some reason.
Sports,
yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's important to stay healthy and to have to do some exercise. But competition sports, I'm not so interested. But yeah, anything else goes. And even if it would be a podcast about football or something, it's still a podcast. So we still have that in common. Yeah.
Right. Well, frankly, sports are a huge industry in the U.S., and I don't think you need to stretch yourself to that. I think there are plenty out there that cover that. I think you can let that one to the side.
Yeah. Same here. We do have a lot of podcasts about football here in Belgium, also. Yeah.
Right.
Other sports, I don't know. I know one about basketball, but yeah, football is very popular. But still, if someone would want to book a spot as a guest talking about a football podcast, yeah, why not? We have the passion for podcasting in common. So yeah, I'm open to that. But yeah.
Well, you'll find out if somebody books that slot.
Yeah. If someone listens to this now, yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time and this lovely and very interesting conversation. Yeah, we will see each other in the podcast marketing community. But yeah, thank you for doing this, and I wish you all the luck with your further research and for a lot more podcast interviews.
Well, thank you, Anne. It's been a pleasure to be on your show and to talk with a fellow podcaster about podcasting.
Yeah. Well, same here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'm happy that you chose to spend your time listening to me and my guest. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you don't want to miss any episodes, just click follow. You will recognize the English spoken episodes by the little country flag in the episode title, which tells you where my guest is from. If you would like to do my guest and me a huge favor, then please give both of our podcasts a 5-star review. And we also love to hear from you, so don't hesitate to send us a message. You can find all our contact details in the episode description. Till next time!